This is 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
WIBC HD2, HD3, Indianapolis. Giants, Phillies, Sunday Night Baseball. The coverage begins at 6 on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
And here we go.
Halliburton runs it down. He'll cross the timeline with 5. Moving to his right with 4. He's in the lane. The floater from the foul line. Pound it and put him on the line. On top, Turner wants to do more damage. And he does. Another 3 from the left edge. Indiana wins it. 126-113. The Pacers have moved in front. 3 games to 1.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Hey, I had a good weekend. Anybody else have a good weekend? How good was your weekend? Mine was spectacular. I love it. I told Jake this a moment ago. I love it when now we're starting to put together the pieces that made this time of year so stinking exciting in the 1990s. I always talked about loving the 80s, but there is still something that we love to romanticize about in the 90s with our sports teams. There's not a damn thing wrong with it. Here's something else that's not wrong. You can't help it if you're the Pacers or if you're a fan of the Pacers and they are playing a team without its best players. You know what you have to do? You got to go out there and you got to beat them down just like you would anybody else. It's not your fault. Well, just think if he had to play against this guy, and just think if he had to play against that guy. Okay, doesn't make any difference whatsoever. In that game, they didn't participate. And then yesterday, Bobby Portis about halfway through the fourth quarter, check that, first quarter, ends up doing something that I had thought that we wouldn't see until game number 5. I thought at some point he would get tagged with fighting, get a couple of tees, and get run. I just didn't think it was going to happen in the fourth quarter. Check that. In the fourth game of the first quarter of the first. Yes, when it happened yesterday. That was really early. But all you can do is play against the team that is assembled. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly what type of team is assembled in Milwaukee coming up tomorrow night. Listen. You know, as a fan of teams around here, you owe zero apologies. There has been no fan base, and I'm talking about the Colts and the Pacers, no fan base that has had to deal more with this anywhere than you have. And I've seen everybody getting kind of loose in social media, and Milwaukee people are getting mad and saying, well, you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that. And just think if we were full strength. How many times have you said that? Think about some of the unfortunate circumstances that have happened around here. So all you can do is be happy because your team is in the process now of moving on with one more win in this first round series against the Bucks. And it doesn't matter. Well, you know, if they get matched up with the Knicks or if they get matched up with the Sixers, there's no way. You have no idea. All you can do is play the team that is assembled in front of you. That's what they're doing. And I will say this. Yesterday, there were a couple of different times when I thought that they may revert back to exactly what we have seen before. Against teams where they're favored, against teams where we think that they should win and win handily. There was so much talk yesterday going in. If you watched the TNT pregame, or if you watched the halftime of what they were doing on ABC, all the talk was there's no way in the world this game should be close, and if it is, it's because the Pacers are malfunctioning. And you heard that, and believe me, those people don't know the past this season. That's happened a lot. That's been often around here. It is a ton. So what you wanted to see at some point was them break away. That's exactly what they did. But the argument that has been made that, well, Milwaukee's not even close to full strength, and it just seemed like they're losing dudes one right after the other. Middleton was even dinged up yesterday. It has been an amazing thing to see. But you know what? You don't apologize, and you move on, and then you'll see what comes up tomorrow night. And again, you got one of those situations, and we'll see if Lillard plays. We'll see if Giannis plays. And to end up seeing how Doc Rivers handles it. Yeah, by the way, I started with TNT, and then I went over, obviously, and watched Chris and Quinn and JJ and Eddie on Bally Sports Indiana. But I caught, like, the very early stages of the TNT broadcast last night. And the thing that stuck out to me, did you guys catch Doc Rivers saying that they needed to play this game now like it was Hoosiers? I thought that was very funny, very appropriate. Because we don't have guys, outside of Middleton, that you can count on scoring in volumes in which it is necessary. Here's the other thing that we have seen, and this is such a real deal with this team. And the realness is they have to play at their pace. And when they don't, you see them scuffling. But again, any team wants to play within the realm of their own wheelhouse. But New York doesn't like to get it up and down the floor very much. You watch the way Philadelphia plays. You got to wait until Embiid gets down the floor about 10 seconds into the shot clock. My man, it takes him forever to get down the floor. And with Embiid, there is not much. Embiid kind of reminds me of me playing. He just looks like that there's a great deal of soreness in every portion of his body. Now, don't get me wrong, he scored 50 the other night. He's still really good. But it looks like it is a task for him to get up and down the floor. But what I'm saying is they play at that pace, and the Pacers, they want to run you up and down the floor. And you can kind of see yesterday, I heard Quinn say this as well, and I did agree with it, that you saw Milwaukee getting a little bit gassed, and rightly so, because they had dudes out there that don't normally play that much. Who was surprised at all to see the faux hawk of Danilo Gallinari out there last night? I went, wait a minute, that's that guy on the end of the bench. My bad. And then he comes out there and knocks down like 4 straight shots. I will fall into it as well. I'll be watching it going, oh, man, I don't want to make this into a Charlotte Hornets game. I don't want this to turn around and look like a Bulls matchup or anything like that. Come on. But it is fun, and this is, again, when we look back and talk about the 1990s and talk about how fun it was in the 1990s to have all this going on as we enter the month of May and hopefully even deeper into the month of May, this is what we're talking about right here. Now, when you get further, then it gets even better. But we have been so long without that. I think a lot of people have either A, lost the feeling, or B, you just never had that because you're too damn young in the first place. It's amazing. And it's a good feeling. And, again, I don't care who they were matched up against. You got to go out and win games in advance. When's the last time you saw a team say, oh, man, that's too bad? Well, we apologize for beating that team out of Indiana because they had an injury. We apologize to that team out of Indiana because they had players that wanted to leave. Did you guys ever get an apology? Anybody ever receive an apology about the misfortune that you've had? We apologize for those in Indiana because of the bad decisions that were made. Yeah, we apologize because that guy had to bail 2 weeks before the start of the season. Yeah, your quarterback. No apologies, right? None. So you don't have to either. Just soak it up and have some fun with it. And I'm glad you're having fun with it because that's what you deserve. And there's no question. Last night, a little bit more of that. That the Pacers trying to close it out on the road. That's a 9:30 start coming up tomorrow night. In game number 5, Pacers up 3-1, and we shall find out the availability of Lillard, of Giannis. I can only guess that particular availability. I would almost be shocked. I'd be shocked if either one went. Maybe more Lillard. I would be floored if any of these guys go at this point. And think about that, too. If the Bucks end up getting bounced in round number 1, that's back-to-back years for that. And everybody is making fun and joking around and talking about Frank Vogel's gig and what they're going to do in Phoenix with their so-called Big Three. But now you look in Milwaukee, and this is like back-to-back seasons for that. Pacers a winner, 126-113. Myles Turner had 29, and I know all of you are waiting for it, right? You're all waiting for me to go off and to tell everybody that's given me crap for believing in Myles Turner for what, the last 6+ years? Now, the thing that you may not recognize is, especially if you were a huge jackwad to me, I remember everybody. So you cannot hide. You can't hide. I remember everybody. If you have been a butthole to me regarding really anything, but certainly regarding that, I have a massive memory. I may not remember my passwords on the computer here, but I remember if you were a horse's ass to me. And I know that a lot of people want to see me go off on that today. You know what? And it would be great. And maybe sometimes I'll fall into that trap, that category, and get loose a little bit. But as I've told you before, I've already won. We've already won this. If you don't recognize by now the reason why it is better, because I think most of that still goes back to you love Sabonis. And believe me, I love Sabonis too. I love Sabonis longer than you did because I watched him play at Gonzaga, and a lot of you were in bed every single night when they played. So I liked him as well. But when you bring Halliburton here, think about it. Halliburton and Sabonis playing together. Yeah, it's not working. What you need is somebody that can stretch the floor. And both Halliburton and Pascal Siakam both have mentioned numerous times how much they enjoy playing with him. Now, I've already won. I've won. Yeah, that's why I want that offer sheet. Listen, it's not just some of you clowns out there. You know, some of you clowns that have kind of faded away, but I remember who you are. I do. But it's not just some of you clowns out there. It was like the Pacers. I joke about this with Chad Buchanan all the time. That's why I want that offer sheet they signed DeAndre Ayton to. I want to hang that on the wall. My God, how lucky you are that Phoenix decided to match it. You imagine? Well, I can't play tonight, Coach, because I slept on an air mattress last night. Okay. Nah, you just let the game do the talking. And listen, it is multidimensional with what he has been able to add to this team. And I will say this, he has shot it so much better toward the end of the season, into the regular season, and now into the postseason. There were times when you expected him to knock down the three at a higher percentage as we went through, well over, I think, half of the season. And the other part about it I never understood around here is why so many of you always whined and cried about guys like Paul George or Victor Oladipo that wanted to leave, or Andrew Luck that just simply put didn't want to play any longer. And, you still, put them in these glass cases of greatness. And you got a dude right there that has never, ever wanted to leave and loves being here and tells you every day about how much he loves being here and playing for you. Yet so many clowns try to run his ass off. It's ridiculous to me. Why? Why? Because he only had 5 rebounds? Nah, these are the moments. These are the moments when you prove it to everybody. And I forget who it was. It may have been Jeremiah Johnson last week or the week before last. And he said, you know what? I think that Myles is going to go down in history as one of the most popular Pacers of all time. And you know, I'm always kind of skeptical about that because you never really know how anything is going to end. But as far as wanting to work hard, wanting to stay here, be here, and as much as he does both on and off the floor, I always found it flooring that people would want to whine and cry about people not wanting to stay here, and then so many wanted to run him out of town. And you guys know who you are. I sure as hell know you are. So this is not going to be a day of gloating. I just always love to reflect with that. And my whole understanding is with his game and why it fits is because that is the way that it is played right now. They don't play the way that they did. We, again, romanticize about 1995, but they don't play that way any longer. Yeah, this is a team offensively. You love this brand of offense. You love getting up and down the floor. You especially love it when it's somebody else getting up and down the floor. Now, if it were you getting up and down the floor, you wouldn't like it. But you love it when your team gets up and down the floor. And you love shot-making ability, and that's what this team and this offense is all about. So he fits perfectly. And really, you and the Pacers as well finally figured that out. So I was really happy for him. I loved hearing that chant. And whoever started that, shout out to you and everybody joining in. Because he's taken a lot of crap for liking to put together Legos. Or, going to Texas and, training, I don't know, what was it he did? Pilates or I don't know what the hell it was. Whatever it was. And believe me, it's not just fans out there. It's like people on the air. I know who you are, too. Always will. And you can just see with the type of vision that they had in putting this team together, that type of big guy. And really, this goes back to midseason. You can go back to the play-in tournament. I had all these clowns telling me, he just left the floor. Remember, he got worked over by Anthony Davis. Well, he just left the floor. Get rid of him. Some guy told me to trade him to Detroit for somebody. Some of you are idiots. Seriously, some of you are idiots. And I know a little bit of it's reactionary in the moment. I can't believe he just left the floor and went to the locker room. Remember that? No, he went down there to scream and cuss and F-bomb. He didn't want to do it on camera because he just got worked over by Anthony Davis. I think we all do that. Oh, but he left. He's leaving. He quit on his team. You got to trade him to Detroit. I mean, hell, that was 6 months ago or less. So good. I'm glad that everybody now is realizing. If you haven't been, listen, just ask me, I'll tell you. I'll tell you why it's worthy of your time, your effort, and your understanding. But seriously, no apologies needed because you're getting what you ultimately want. Getting some fun this time of year with this Pacer team, and that is what matters. It's what matters. Oh, well, look who they're playing. I mean, you have to have a good game against Brook Lopez. According to who? Who says that? You do? Where's that written? I'm sorry. I think you still have to play. So, still have to play and produce in moments. It's been fun so far. Pacers and a chance to close out on the road. I hope they do. Again, that's kind of the whole, leave no doubt from Remember the Titans. a lot of cliched stuff that I could bring up right here, but you just, when you have the opportunity to close out somebody that I'm assuming will prep to be closed out, then I want to see you do it. Leatu Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA, joined us on Friday. If you missed that, 1075thefan.com. That is a podcast. Of course, this weekend was the NFL draft. We'll get your thoughts on that. Round 2, number 52, A.D. Mitchell out of Texas, the wide receiver. Matt Gonzalez, third rounder, offensive tackle, Pittsburgh, number 79 overall. Tanner Bortolini, guard, Wisconsin. He was a fourth rounder, 117. Check that, I'm sorry. 142 in the fifth. 151 in the fifth. And you could tell that the Colts are trying to go after somebody because the return game is now going to become prevalent now. Anthony Gould, speedster, wide receiver, Oregon State. Jalen Carlisle, linebacker, Missouri, 164 in the fifth round. Jalen Simpson, cornerback, Auburn. That was the first time I believe that they addressed the cornerback situation. They better be right about that. And I would assume at some point they're going to have to tap into any free agent, veteran free agents out there. And it's okay to like who you have, but there is so much uncertainty, and that can help you unravel. So they sure as hell better be right about that. Yeah, back-to-back cornerbacks. I mentioned Simpson and then Micah Abraham, cornerback out of Marshall. And Jonah Leulu, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. That was the draft for the Colts. We'll get your thoughts on it. Rick Venturi is going to join us tomorrow. I'm sure he has thoughts. I started right here on Friday. Yeah, as much as I wanted to see them go high level, really go hard at somebody offensively, the story of Latu is pretty awesome. So hopefully that turns out to be something. And then you had Chris Ballard over the weekend too. Chris Ballard kind of doing the Chris Ballard thing. This was in response to, I think, scouts and some chirping on the NFL Network about how, trying to think again, the situation was about A.D. Mitchell being somewhat problematic or, questioning his ability, his capability to hang in there. And listen, Chris Ballard and his staff, they do the same thing all the time. All right, this is some anonymous scouts observation. They have scouts, and they also have observations. But regarding this, that became public about their second-round selection, A.D. Mitchell, wide receiver out of Texas. This is what Chris Ballard had to say.
I don't know. I mean, I read some of the bullshit that was said on TV. I mean, just the typical, excuse my language, our typical league, unnamed sources, bad interview. That's such bullshit. I mean, it is. It's bullshit. Like, put your name on it. I'm tired of, we tear these young men down. These are 21, 22 young men. And if people out there can tell me they're perfect in their lives, it's crap. It's crap. This is a good kid. And, for those reports to come out, like, I said it last year, it's bull. I'm sorry. I apologize for the language. I don't, but I do.
Yeah, we did hear this last year. They do the same thing. All these teams do the same thing. In fact, I would say this, and whatever Chris wants to do, because we've seen this before, heard this before, or at least something like this before, that's fine. I mean, it's twofold for Chris. I mean, he gets to perform like that, and then he also gets to back up his guy like that, which is also important. And, then you don't remove the motivational chip on the shoulder if you're A.D. Mitchell. Right? So it's beneficial to everybody, but it's like a rite of passage this time of year. Yeah, you don't have to apologize about cussing. That's fine with me. We'll beep it out. In fact, I wish we had something where you could just I do have a little bit of admiration for Pat McAfee because they're allowed to. Now, when you do it and there's no meaning behind it, if you're just doing it to do it, I think that's lame. But if there's some meaning behind it and you just have to go to that portion of your dictionary for a word, I'm cool with that. That was Chris Ballard over the weekend. He was, I'm sure he's not happy, but at the same time, there's a performance art to that. And that's not the first time we've seen that, and logically not the last time. So thoughts on that from Colts fans? We got Pat Boylan coming up too. Boylan's got a lot to talk about. Boylan from both the Pacers television and radio networks. We'll talk about the Pacers with their chance to close out tomorrow night. Caitlin Clark and working out. Pat is going to be noticed by the world because he does the Fever games. Well done. Pat Boylan's coming up as well. And James constantly trying to get me the guest where I have to sit in my vehicle and pronounce their name 9,000 times. Ikaika Malloy. Make sure, is that right? The defensive coordinator for UCLA. I got to leave it up to James, so I got to go out there and practice. Ikaika Malloy.
Ikaika Malloy.
Ikaika Malloy.
Ikaika.
What? I got to rewrite that again. Son of a. See, that would have been a moment for me to utilize a cuss word, and it would be okay. One more time.
Ikaika Malloy.
Ikaika Malloy. I kind of like mine better. Ikaika Malloy, who is now the defensive coordinator, he was the defensive line coach a year ago. Of course, he obviously had a great deal, and can talk about his time at UCLA and, maybe putting your mind at ease regarding the next situation. Ikaika. Why do I keep saying A?
I don't know.
Ikaika Malloy. We have that going by the 4 o'clock. 4:30 is when he's coming on. Will I learn to say that by 4:30? All right, quick break and we shall return. I got time for you too. Pat Boylan is going to join Stephen Holden in the 5 o'clock hour. We have Grand Prix tickets as well. Grand Prix tickets. I can't pronounce that either. Ikaika.
There it is.
Huh?
Said there it is.
Ikaika,
yeah.
Ikaika
You got it.
Malloy.
Right there.
All right, let's do this. At what time will I learn to pronounce this person's name? By 4:30, you think?
I hope.
Inside the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live, man. Sometimes you just can't run the Southern Indiana out of the Southern Indiana dude right there. What are you going to do? AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. Stream the app. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Let me have a Diablo sandwich, a Dr. Pepper, make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
And Nembhard will take the ball from Ed Malloy. Over on that far side hash, he flips it into the backcourt. Halliburton runs it down. He'll cross the timeline with 5. Moving to his right with 4. He's in the lane. The floater from the foul line. Count it and put him on the line. Nicely done, employee number 0. The floater from the foul line with 1 6/10 seconds to play. Halliburton with a chance to make it a 3-point game.
Oh, Friday night, everybody, was incredible. The shot making, especially Chris Middleton, was insane. And I know that everybody else was out there, so I'm at B1057 doing the JMV takeover, screaming, foul, foul. I know everybody else was too. But think about where this team would be right now, considering that matchup, had they not closed that game in overtime on Friday night. What a mess that would have made. We're not nearly feeling as good as we are right now. But they got it done. Got it done again yesterday. Chance to close it coming up on Tuesday night. Tomorrow night. That's a 9:30 tip time, by the way. 9:30 on a Tuesday night in Milwaukee. Milwaukee tries to win to stay alive. And Pacers try to close it to move on to the Eastern Conference semifinals for the first time since 2014 on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You can find him across the board, Pacers Radio, Pacers TV. He's doing the fever. There is so much going on in the existence, the life of Pat Boylan right now, who joins us. I can't even imagine. Do you get time to rest? Are you sleeping at all? Or you just got going from one spot to the other?
It's a busy time, but, man, it's a good busy time, and it's really good to be this busy between both the Pacers and the Fever. Erica Wheeler, a Fever guard, John, was asked about it today, kind of the Pacers and all the excitement around the playoffs and Caitlin Clark hysteria, and she put it, I think, better than I can. She said, Indiana's Hollywood right now. So I think that describes the situation pretty well.
And that would have been the first time that would have ever been referenced. So, yes.
Yeah, that's a brand new sentence, that's for sure.
Hey, be able to sell the place even more so all the way around if you make Indianapolis and Indiana Hollywood right now, too. We used to have, an idea that it was difficult to sell players on wanting to come here, and now Indiana would, I think, sounds a hell of a lot better to get players in here. Pat Boylan joins us. I want to start with the Pacers. Let's go back to Friday night. And I brought you in on that game winner by Halliburton. Have you allowed yourself to imagine how messy, how messed up it would have been had the Pacers lost that game on Friday night, which they were very close to doing?
Yeah, I was sitting there as Middleton's throwing in one of those threes and just thinking, if you lose this, the downside of losing it feels even greater than the upside of winning it, if that makes sense. I mean, had you lost that game, not only do you go down 2-1, you lose your home court advantage and all of the obvious, but just the mental side of losing a 19-point lead, of losing a 3-point lead late in regulation and late in overtime. I mean, the mental hurdle of just trying to overcome that would have been massive. Not only do you go up 2-1 by getting it, but you avoid a scenario where you have to spend all of the following day talking about losing that big lead. And, it was such a great crowd. And, I mean, the Pacers just jumped out of the gates, sprinted out of the gates, I think, on all of that energy. And, the city's been waiting for this for 5 years. Had you not been able to close that one out, it would have been, potentially catastrophic to the series. But they did get it done. You just heard the Halliburton clip there a moment ago, and I think the Pacers rode a lot of that momentum into Game 4, too.
Yeah, no question about that. Pat Boylan, radio, TV for the Pacers, also doing the Fever this year. We'll talk about that coming up in just a second. So we'll fast forward a little bit, even past last night's game, and position in which the Pacers are in to close out coming up tomorrow night on the road in Milwaukee. How do you think Milwaukee will play this? I don't happen to think Lillard nor Giannis will play. How do you think they'll play it?
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see, because if this were the regular season and the way that Milwaukee is handling the injury reports right now and with everything Doc is saying, if this were the regular season, those guys are not going. And with it being a closeout Game 5 and the Bucks just haven't been extremely straightforward with how close Giannis is. It's felt like every single game, all right, maybe the window is open for him to return next game, but sure enough, the injury report comes out, and I was feverishly refreshing it before coming on here, hoping that we would have some sort of update, and at least as of right now we don't, but teams do have to submit an initial injury report here at some point very soon in the day here. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's a scenario where I would probably be surprised if both of them played, but it's really just an educated guess right now, and I think both of them are nowhere near 100%. But that said, especially if it's Giannis, if he is getting closer, you're talking about a top 2, top 3 player, and when they won a championship, he was not 100%. He was playing through a lot a couple of years ago and had some of the best finals performances of all time. So that's kind of the elephant that's been in the room this whole series is, okay, you're in a great spot. You've taken advantage of this scenario, which, by the way, no Pacers fan should feel bad about. The last time the Pacers were in the playoffs,
right,
the top 2 guys were out.
Right.
You've done everything right so far, but there's always that possibility that maybe the best player in the world could be back next game.
No, there's no question about that. So and that's, I guess, the one thing that you do look at. I just kind of wonder, Pat. I wonder where Milwaukee's head's going to be here. And I don't know how much of a role getting bounced in the fashion in which they did a year ago by Miami will play here. But it's almost like, do you test or, do you chance your guys about furthering an injury given the situation that you're in? I almost would think you kind of play it without those guys, and if you're fortunate enough to win, then maybe think about that coming back here. It seems like to me a big time question tomorrow night that both Giannis and Lillard give that a go together.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, and I think if you're Giannis and you look at this, and maybe you could try to play through some pain, but there's also a risk of re-aggravating or making that injury much worse, which Doc Rivers has made clear. They have no interest in doing this. This is a guy that, of course, is a part of their big-term picture. And if you're Giannis and you're looking at it, you're saying, maybe I could give it a try, but I have to worry about the future by doing so. And then also, we've got to win 3 straight games, and I've got to do it potentially without Damian Lillard. I mean, that's the guys want a championship, and mental fortitude is clearly something that he has in abundance. But you look at that and go, man, I don't know that makes the most sense. I don't know that equation adds up. But obviously, emotion can drive a lot of sports too, and it's just so tough to know with him whether he is on the doorstep or not. They have ruled him out, as you've seen, early afternoon of the last 3 of the last games. So if he's not ruled out by early afternoon tomorrow, it tells you he's at least getting closer. But whether or not he might go in Game 5, I think it's anybody's guess. And if he does go, odds are he's not 100%. But Giannis at 80 or 90% is still pretty scary.
It's Pat Boylan with us. Did you ever think that you would hear a Myles Turner chant as you heard last night during that game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse?
Were Games 3 and 4 the JMV vindication games?
Oh, I've told everybody to blank off so much. I'm trying not to, but I can't help myself. Yes.
It was fantastic. And then for him to step into the 3 and knock it down while they're chanting his name, I think that's one of those moments that if you were in the building, you're going to remember for a long time. And I think back, this is my 10th year doing it. I mean, I think that's probably one of the 4 or 5 signature moments that I can remember. He's just been so good in this series, so good in Games 3 or 4. And I heard a little bit of what you were saying earlier in the show, and I couldn't agree with it more. This is a guy that has never wanted to do anything but stay here in Indiana. To the degree he wanted anything different, he wanted his chance to be the starting center. And he played a couple of seasons without being the center. He was out of position as the Pacers were trying the Sabonis and Turner duo. And he ended up getting what he wanted, and it was kind of prove-it time for him a couple of years ago, and he's done nothing but proven it. And when you look at the Pacers and what they can accomplish, Tyrese Halliburton is probably the most important individual player to the ceiling of what this team can do, and then it's probably Siakam after that. But when you've got Turner, he's probably third on that list, and when you've got him doing what he's been doing, especially the last couple of games, knocking down the three, protecting the rim at a pretty high rate, that's a skill set that not many centers have. And Lopez is a good defender, but he's not a good defender at chasing you around the perimeter. And he made it very, very clear he didn't have a ton of interest in going out there, and so Turner made him pay.
So Pat Boylan on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, too. It's funny. I just kind of think about all the things, being coached by Bjorkgren, being placed in the corner to stand there and have everybody say that you're lazy because that's what you're being told to do offensively, and, having to try to run a high ball screen with Malcolm Brogdon, knowing that you're never, ever going to get the ball back. All these things have changed, certainly since Tyrese Halliburton got here. That has untapped resources, consistent resources, I think, that most Pacer fans thought we would never see.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the great part about Tyrese Halliburton is everybody is at the best version of themselves typically when they're playing with him because he has such vision. He puts you in a position to succeed. And I never saw the final numbers on this, although it had to be true because Şengün got hurt at the end of the year. I believe the Halliburton to Turner duo was the leading assist duo in the NBA this year. So that speaks to the importance of Halliburton, but also just how well those two connect. And Turner's playing exactly the position that suits his skill set. He's a good three-point shooter. He can step out to the three-point line. But he's also a rim protector, and he can take care of business down there when a guy gets beat. And he's, I think, shown a really good job. One thing that's really impressed me about him is as he has grown over the years, he's really good at when he's got a mismatch down low, getting himself to the foul line. I mean, he's really good at exploiting that, putting the defender in a position where he's either got to foul him or let him finish inside. And, it was only a few years ago that this guy had questions about whether or not he could play down in the post offensively, and that's never going to be his strong suit. But you're watching how he's attacking, especially in games 3 and 4. Yeah, the three-point shot's falling. I think he hit 6 of them last night. But he's also doing a lot of damage around the rim, too. The pick and pop is good for him, but the pick and roll works as well. And so he's got a lot of different tools that I think he's built up. And in terms of players progressing and improving on their weaknesses over the course of their career, Myles Turner is a great, great case study for that. And when you put Tyrese Halliburton with him and the way that he's able to open up and unlock players, you're absolutely seeing the very best version of Myles Turner right now.
You imagine having to play with a player like that, a skill set like that, a season of either pick and pop or pick and slip with Malcolm Brogdon and how maddening that would have been. So, yes, there's a number of things that certainly have changed, and Tyrese Halliburton is at the top of the list. Hey, buddy, before I let you go, you realize where you're going as far as people watching you now, listening to you call games for the Indiana Fever. This is incredible on so many levels. And one of the first people I thought about once they drafted Caitlin Clark, or we learned that they were going to have the opportunity to do it, was you and the notoriety you're going to get, the listenership, the viewership you're going to get out of this. It's going to be great for you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And obviously we're thrilled not just to have a player of her caliber, but somebody that's putting a spotlight on a franchise in a league that really sorely deserves it. And it's been just almost surreal. The whole thing kind of still feels like a dream. It was only a few weeks ago before she was drafted that everything was kind of business as usual. And I mean, we're getting viewership numbers on the press conference stream that, go way, way beyond viewership numbers of games last year. It's been so hard to fathom, but it's been such a welcomed addition. Training camp today, for example, there were probably 10 different media outlets out there. And I know we've announced our local package with WTHR, and I think we'll have another announcement here coming soon with just our full broadcast plans. But we're obviously thrilled. To get to cover the WNBA and to get to cover the Fever is something that I hold in great esteem and with great value, and to hopefully get the eyeballs on this, that I feel like it's long deserved, and this is a very proud franchise with Tamika Catchings and won a championship and all of that. But we're in totally uncharted territory right here. And you're talking about a building in Cambridge Fieldhouse that if the Pacers can get to round 2, you're going to have sold-out playoff games that are then going to transition right into sold-out Indiana Fever games. I mean, it's a completely new territory here for this city, and I'm thrilled to have a role in all of it.
Well, I'm thrilled for you. And I told James this last week, I said, man, I am such a horse's ass. When's the last time I had Pat on? I sit here, I'm still kind of jacking around all the time when you come in. My apologies for that, man. That's lame on my part. I'm so sorry.
You owe no apology.
I'm a jackass. So
I appreciate the crossover visits that we get. 9:30. The NBA has given us a couple interesting tip times for the series. Yes. I'm guessing a 9:30 tip tomorrow. We're not going to have any crossover.
It just depends if I want to get up out of this seat. So,
well, you're welcome as always to stay in there. It's your spot. We just borrow it.
Well, awesome work as always, man. It's great to talk with you and soak this thing up, man. Whether you got to go on the air at 9 o'clock tomorrow night in Milwaukee or whatever, this is fun as hell. This is what it's supposed to be about. I'm very happy for you and the guys calling the game, and have some fun with it, man. We'll be in touch again soon.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Appreciate it, John. Take care.
Pat Boylan on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm very happy for you, the fans. Let's get to you, the fans, on the other side. They haven't closed anything out yet, but I'm happy for you because it's been a while. Quick break. We'll come back next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Chapters of this story JMV.
You just got your asses whipped by a bunch of damn nerds.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
They've matched their largest lead. It's 104 to 101. On the foul line, Nembhard sends it up top with 4:15 to go. Shot clock to 9. Lillard drives, open man, near corner, and Myles ties the game.
Beautiful play there by Tyrese Halliburton. Draws the double team. Turner all alone in that corner. He's got a nice game going.
Game tied at 104. Milwaukee takes a timeout.
That's a Pacers radio right there. I think that's me. Somebody's sending me something right here. You know who I got that from just now? You know who interrupted that song? Who interrupted Scott Stepp? That's BK, Brian Kelly, the shop in Broad Ripple and Carmel. I dig it. Get some new shirts ready for the month of May right here. I just saw Dean had sent me this. This is from Dean in Broad Ripple. You need the guys at the shop to work on reviving the old Hicks versus Knicks t-shirts. I'm trying not to get ahead here. I will say this. It's been such a long damn time since you've been allowed to have any fun. It's time to have some fun. It's from JR. JMV, I'm driving listening to you on the phone. I'm at the Illinois-Indiana state line, and I just heard a Cardinals commercial. Yeah, they suck. Now, the Rangers took 2 of 3 from the Reds over the weekend. JMV, are you from Greene County? Yes, I can tell. Exactly. It's from Rex. JMV, Ballard's rant seemed phony and forced. I understand coaching players going off after an emotional game or incident, but not after criticism of your mid-round pick. Yeah. I'm sure that there was a so-called method to the presentation right there, a method to the performance, Rex, because those guys do that moment by moment with all of these players. So, and Ballard's, what's the look Ballard's going with now? Got the long hair going? And that's not a mullet, is it? That's no mullet.
Doesn't really look like a mullet.
What's happening here? Long hair in the back. Ikaika Malloy is the defensive coordinator.
Ikaika.
I got it. I just said it.
Did you?
I said Ikaika Malloy.
Oh, it sounded a little weird to me.
Well, it's yeah. Well,
the second time you definitely got it though.
I got it, baby. The defensive coordinator of UCLA will tell us a little bit more about Leatu Latu, who was on with us on Friday. If you missed that, podcast 1075thefan.com. Don't miss it. JMV, am I the only one that now thinks Ballard was 100% the one that talked blank about A.D. Mitchell? Probably. I'll tell you again after 4. We'll take your calls at 239-1070, so jump on here. Pacers postseason, Game 4 last night, Colts in their draft over the weekend. But I'll tell you why he would end up doing something like that, even more than the performance that you heard a little bit earlier. Hour 2, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The laundry room. For as long as I
The Ride with JMV.
It's called Sex Panther by Odeon. It's illegal in 9 countries.
It's quite pungent. It stings the nostrils.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Indiana by 7. McConnell takes the lane and gives it to Turner, who right in front winds up and with tremendous force slams it with the right hand.
Boyle right there on probably the play of the game. You know, Myles tried that a couple of plays earlier and back ironed the slam. He was trying to go at Lopez. There's more than a couple of different times. And let's just face it, that type of go at the opposition type of play is what everybody around here has wanted to see out of him consistently forever. And you had a couple of moments right there. And again, the first one I think was back ironed, and then the second one, it was almost like, if you remember the dunk with Trace Jackson Davis on Wembanyama during the regular season, it was kind of like that. Very impressive. Pacers now up 3-1, best of 7, 126-113. Bobby Portis gets tossed first quarter. That was highly ill-advised on a team without Lillard, on a team without Giannis. I thought Beverly, it was weird how the best in the world came out and made sure we're not dealing with any crap tonight, so none of this, you're too small stuff. I still don't know what Siakam got teed up for. And I thought Greg Anthony made a great point. He says, you can't just shut your eyes and run back down the floor. I will sit here and say, I want to see all that energy, the most energy possible. I want to see it. I can't wait to see it. And then when you do it, sometimes that just happens. Do we think that it would be much more enjoyable if the best in the world didn't tighten it up that much? Or are we that afraid that something's going to happen? It's out of curiosity. Pacers a winner. Again, 9:30 that tip time tomorrow night. We probably should give more love to game number 3. That was wild. Chris Middleton, the fadeaway 3 with 1.4, and everybody in the crowd screaming, foul, give the foul. Oh, yeah, then Middleton doing it again, and everybody in the crowd screaming, give the foul, give the foul. But then Halliburton with the heroics. Middleton, third time was not the charm on Friday night. Think about how that could have ended. 9:30 tip time tomorrow night. Your coverage begins right here at 9 o'clock. Pacers have the opportunity to close out the Bucks. We'll see the injury report a little bit later on this afternoon and see where the thought process might be regarding tomorrow night in a closeout performance at home for the Bucks. We shall see. Knicks have an opportunity tomorrow night to close out the Philadelphia 76ers. How about Philly? They oftentimes make fun. The big markets make fun of the small markets, make fun of, the fan base. How embarrassing was that? I'm not always on the same page as Embiid. I think Embiid's as dirty as all these other players. Did you watch some of his antics over the weekend? I mean, Mitchell Robinson, you grab his leg when he goes up, when you land on the floor. Embiid, when he falls down, always takes the chance on falling on somebody. So I think Embiid, beyond being incredibly talented and very slow-paced and often injured, I think he's got a dirty streak in him as well. But he was right about the crowd there. What an embarrassment. Sounded more like a New York Knicks crowd than it did anything else. Yeah, D. George tells me this, getting back to the officials being so tight with that. He said the official had just dealt with the Westbrook meltdown in the Clippers-Mavs series earlier in the week. His antennas were up. Yeah, but, that is Westbrook. Siakam. I can understand if the antennas are up for Portis Because as soon as you see those eyeballs do that thing, then you go, hey, wait a minute. We better hand somebody a technical right here because these eyeballs are going crazy. But it's one thing with Portis, but Siakam? And really, even with Beverly, who has a history, the whole too small thing, these guys do that all the time. But Siakam's, that was lame. Still, even with the antennas up, D. George. Man, that was fun. The Colts draft over the weekend, too, and we, again, Leatu Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA, the 15th overall selection by the Colts on Thursday night, joined us on Friday's show. That podcast is at 1075thefan.com. Ikaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator from UCLA, first-year defensive coordinator, is going to join us bottom of the hour for a little bit more about Latu. A.D. Mitchell, Matt Gonzalez, offensive tackle. Mitchell, by the way, wide receiver. Tanner Bortolini, a guard out of Wisconsin. Anthony Gould, kick returner. Specialty dude, speedy wide receiver, Oregon State. Jalen Carlisle, linebacker, Missouri. He had a back-to-back cornerback selected in round 6 and 7. Jalen Simpson and Micah Abraham. That's Auburn and Marshall, respectively. And Jonah Leulu, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. And by the way, too, of local note here, in round number 2, number 39 overall by the Rams, Braden Fisk, offensive lineman out of Michigan City, played at Florida State. I think started at Western Michigan. Finished at Florida State, number 39 overall. These are former Indiana high school players. Blake Fisher's offensive lineman, Avon, to the Texans. Notre Dame player, number 59 overall, round 2. Isaac Garendo out of Avon, the running back, to the 49ers. Not a bad spot whatsoever. Round 4. Austin Booker of Center Grove, round 5, 144. Started at Minnesota, finished at Kansas. He gets drafted by the Bears, so congratulations to Austin and his family and the Center Grove folks down there. That's awesome. And a whole hell of a lot of Avon guys. Avon guys all over the board. Tyrone Tracy Avon too, right? I believe. Purdue started at Iowa. He gets drafted by the Giants. Carson Steele, running back, Center Grove, was signed undrafted free agent by the Chiefs. So, high school guys, if I missed anybody, too, you know of, go ahead and check in with me, and we'll double back. Appreciate that. Yes?
Tyrone Tracy was Decatur Central.
Decatur Central. I'm sorry. Did I write down Avon?
I think
2 Avon guys and 1 Decatur Central guy. Yeah, I knew that. Come on now. Thank you very much. Some say, now this is from Jim McCann in Southern California, who's a big UCLA fan. Some say Ikaika, some say Ikaika. Man, you're just going to mix my head up right here. Come on, Jim. I don't need my head mixed up anymore.
So go with the actual audio clip of the guy saying his name. Ikaika
Malloy is what we're going with today. Man, what a great weekend. It really was. Congrats to back-to-back games at the Fieldhouse, both on Friday and then again on Sunday. I know you Pacer fans had a blast. Could tell. All right, 239-1070. Some Pacer reaction right now from Brandon. Brandon, join the show. How are you?
Hey, JMV, how's it going?
Outstanding. What's up?
I wanted to ask you a question. First of all, do you think you could play that song by Nappy Roots on the takeover? It's called Dime, Quarter, Nickel, Pennies.
I don't think that I have before. I played It's Going to Be a Good Day. Going to Have a Good Day. I played that, and then I played whatever their original was. That was the biggest hit out of the Louisville, Kentucky band that started in Bowling Green, I believe, at Western Kentucky, Nappy Roots. So, yes.
So could I request something from them?
Yes. Now, sometimes I have to go back and edit a little bit, so keep that in mind.
Okay. Well, I don't want you to get in trouble, but I didn't listen the other night because of the big game. I was listening to Mark, and then
I understand.
It was a great game, and I would think, now we could be wrong. I think Milwaukee can just throw in the towel, but they won't. But I would just rest Damian and Giannis and go home. But we'll see what happens. But I was looking forward if it's Pacers and Knicks. I was hoping to be the Pacers and Sixers because it'd be at home. But Joel Embiid is a dirty player.
He is a dirty player. He's got a dirty streak in him. Yes, he does. And when he falls, he's always looking for somebody to land on, and especially if it's their legs and knees.
Yeah. You don't think Portis will be suspended tomorrow night, do you?
I don't. No, I don't. Yeah.
He didn't throw the punch. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody freaked out over that. I was surprised, and I know once he did that whole slap to the side of the head, all bets were off then. But I come from a different era where I go, okay, that seems like a Tuesday in the NBA, not anything that somebody gets tossed for. But this is a different era, and as D. George had sent me a message saying, this group had Westbrook a couple of nights earlier, so their antenna was up a little bit, so that could be the reason why. There were so many different technicals early, and especially with Siakam. I was trying to figure out exactly what he did, but that's what happened.
Well, and I was just so proud of Nembhard, and he just walked away in his professionalism. I mean, I think this Pacer team, was it Jake and somebody was talking about, Jimmy was talking about earlier that, we're maybe a player away. We don't have Mathurin, but I just kind of wonder too, is Jalen Smith kind of on the outside looking in for next year? I mean, I'd like to see him around, but I know that Rick hasn't played him in this series. Probably it's because of the matchups. I mean, but I like what we're doing.
Yeah, it's definitely very much so up. I'd be very surprised if he's here next year. And I like him a great deal too. And there may be, let's just say for example, they get a series against the Knicks or whatever. Maybe you find a spot back in the rotation again, but clearly out right now. And even before this, him being back here was going to be highly in question.
So do you think there will be a Game 6 Thursday? I mean, or do you think they'll take care of it?
I want them to take care of it coming up tomorrow night, especially if the Bucks are going to decide. Like, my thought is that they remain the same. They put out the same personnel tomorrow night that they did last night, and then maybe if you get to back to Indy for game number 6, maybe that's when you unveil your bigger guns for a final time. But I can't see being down 3-1 that both those guys are going to return.
And one thing I'll say real quick, and I'll let you go because I know you got other callers. I think the Colts, Zach Moss is a Bengal now, but I really think the Colts need another running back. I guess the draft was okay, but they didn't go after a real corner, JMV, and that concerns me. But we did go after a pass rusher, so we'll have to see what happens. But if it doesn't work, then it really goes on Chris Ballard. I think he tried, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, hey, thank you for the call, Brandon. I appreciate that. 2 corners late in the draft for the Colts over the weekend, too. At some point, let's just face it, I don't know when that's going to be. You're going to have to dip in, aren't you, to the veteran free agency pool? Put that toe in there. Who's with me on that? It's from Greg Allen, JMV. Myles Turner dominating Game 4 and hitting daggers every time the Bucks made a run, and need the same into the series in Game number 5. I could not agree more, Greg, on that. As much as I love seeing games at the Fieldhouse and you guys fired up, I don't want to see a Game 6 on Thursday. Anybody else with me on that? No Game 6 on Thursday. You just want to take care of it when you can. There is no doubt, especially when you're dealing with a vulnerable team. And the one thing that concerns me, and Rick Carlisle said before the game yesterday, this is going to be one of our tougher games regardless of the personnel. This Game 4 where you have a team that's wounded, very prideful, no matter the personnel, is going to be tough to get past. And he was right. And the Pacers have a history of against teams that we kind of lean back and go, yeah, you know what? Put that in the win column. They've had a history this year of playing down to that competition. In fact, there were some moments yesterday where you thought, all right, now it's time to kick this thing into gear. Telling you, this time of year in the postseason, and I know a lot of you have missed it and maybe have forgotten a little bit about it, things get tight on a dude. I mean, really everybody, all the dudes. Things can get tight. You want loose things, not tight things. So, yes, tomorrow night would be much better. Plus, I don't know where you are with this. I know rest is a good thing. I don't want to see a team like the Pacers get too much because I don't want to see you fall out of normalcy for yourself. Get out of a groove that you're in. It's kind of what it felt like. You go back to game number 1, they lost in Milwaukee. And listen, everybody was basically off a week except for those teams in the play-in. But it took the Pacers more than just a minute to get out and get going. JMV, what if Ballard is unnamed source that put the reports on AD just so he would fall to him at number 2? There's also reports that Reggie and Shane were banging the drum for AD. Well, you can tell there's a video at Colts.com where Reggie Wayne is incredibly excited about that. So I think that to me, Chad, that was a hard target all along. But the gamesmanship of a draft, especially when you have somebody that, I'll put Chris Ballard in this category. Somebody that is clearly savvy about what he's doing, but also thinks he is the most savvy. Like, yes, he is savvy. There's no doubt. But he also believes, when he looks in the mirror, he says, hey, look at my new long hair, and I'm very savvy. I wouldn't put gamesmanship of any kind past anybody, Chad, for real. It's from Alex JMV, crossing my fingers for the Pacers versus the Knicks in the postseason during the month of May and IndyCar. Pacers and Racers. Man, the ultimate in nostalgia. There's no doubt about that. What a great time. Hey, JMV, I think Jackson Jr. is trying to become a junior Bobby Portis. He tripped somebody on the baseline. Who was it that he tripped? He literally put out his left foot defensively on the baseline and tripped somebody. Yeah, he was all out of sorts. You could tell Doc Rivers, every time that he motioned and he was getting into somebody and you knew he wasn't getting into an official, it was normally Andre Jackson. Did you guys notice that last night? He got into that guy nearly every single time he ran up and down the floor about something. He was on him. JMV, great point. Screw rest. That playoff team that beat the Magic with Byron Scott rolled right into beating the rested Hawks in game 1 of the next round. I'm telling you, a large amount of days off, while you feel a lot better and stronger and healthy, you do not want to lose the rhythm. No rhythm. It's from Calvin. I had an awesome time on Friday. We need to do that much more often. Calvin came out and dropped a couple of beers on me from Yingling. I appreciate that. That was a good time. It was. A shortened time, but a good time nonetheless. Murphy's Pub House, Oleo Road, 116 and Oleo up in Fishers. Great time. Good to see you too, Calvin. And everybody else that showed up out there. Hell of a time. Matthew's next at 239-1070. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, JMV.
Are we getting ready for the mini marathon this weekend? Is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Well done. You know, I've never ever done it. It seems like a punishment to me. I don't want to be punished.
It's a lot of fun, and if I can do it, and if Jake can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I've wrestled around with this answer, but I've always said no. I said, yeah, I don't want any chafing going on, and yeah, that's a long time. I've always said no. But I do realize this, for many, Matthew, it is getting through this. It's been a long-term goal. And that leads to a lot of positives that I really dig, with whatever may be going on. But a lot of long-term goals are riding on the mini marathon, and I have a great deal of respect for that.
Oh, thank you. Now, Gritty is also coming up from
Gritty's running in the mini?
She is, and we need to know where your remote is going to be on Friday.
Well, that's James. I don't know if I'm anywhere on Friday. How the hell am I nowhere on Friday?
I don't know. As far as I can see, we don't have anything scheduled this week.
What the? How am I not anywhere this week? That's crazy. That's crazy talk. Somebody out there needs to say, hey, we got to get you out with us on Friday. I can't be. I call a week without being on the road naked or nude. I can't be nude this week. I got to be clothed.
Can't you at least go to the convention center and be like across from the expo?
Anywhere. Yes, exactly. Anywhere where there's going to be people where we can hang out and have a little bit of fun, Matthew. Absolutely.
Gritty and I will help move the equipment. We're already going to be downtown Friday afternoon.
Well, I'm very proud of you guys. You know how much I enjoy your company, and it's great to hear from you. And have a blast down there, too. Hopefully that I'm down there to be able to motivate you guys and others. Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, I hope so.
Matthew, great to talk with you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Yes, that's weird. I got to get out. Mark Monteith, I saw this. He, long time for the Indy Star, covered the Pacers, very knowledgeable regarding the Pacers, certainly. Had sent this yesterday. These last 3 games have been the highlight of Myles Turner's career. He inspired hope as a rookie after early injury, began playing well mid-January, finally got his first start January the 28th, responded with 20 and 26, opened the second season. I guess this is a longer-winded thing than I thought. He's going over his career with Myles. It is interesting to see Myles and where he is today compared to where he has been. And I don't know the dude personally whatsoever. People think, well, you hang out with him and he's your buddy. Nah, I saw in him something that others didn't. I saw an important piece in him that others didn't. And oftentimes, I'm sorry, it was the Pacer people too. Why else would you fly out an offer sheet for DeAndre Ayton for crying? What the world? I just have always seen something else. And now that you have one of the, if not the best, point guard, you have somebody that's a real point guard, not some jack around. We've seen Malcolm Brogdon, or not in an offense where you got to go be staked out in the corner and have everybody yell because all he's doing is standing out there. Well, that's what he's told to do. That was the offense. You go stand over there. It's been all the evolution that we have seen, especially more consistently in the past 2 years regarding Myles, has been Tyrese Halliburton and that influence. No question. That's where you start. All right, quick break. Do I need one right here? Do I get a minute? All right, I got one more minute. Bill's at 239-1070. Hello, Bill.
JMV, how you doing today,
Billy?
bud?
I'm great. I just got the bad news that evidently we're not out this week. How can that be?
Well, you've got 2 locations standing by just waiting for a call. So one of them's on the east side, one of them's in Beech Grove. So
hell yes, I'm ready, buddy. I'm ready to do whatever it takes.
Hey, wanted to talk a little bit about Doc Rivers and the position that he's in. I mean, you have to bring Lopez out to the three-point line, or you have to bring him out of the lane. And why is that not a zone? I mean, he looked like he was playing zone. Every time Myles, just because you play center and you're standing out the three-point line, you still have to be defended. And there was nobody guarding Myles.
Yeah, there was a zone. Well, I thought in game number 1, Bill, I thought that they gave up a lot to try to maintain a defensive presence in and around Tyrese Halliburton. So I thought they gave up a lot. And I'm not going to suggest that Siakam got 30-plus because they let him get 30-plus, but they certainly seemed in game number 1 defensively more concerned about Halliburton and Halliburton doing his thing than they did anybody else offensively on the Pacer team.
Well, they don't have any respect for Halliburton's three-point shot. I mean, he gets open looks all the time, and And the way that he finds the other players like Nimhard and Neesmith and everything at the three-point line, I can't wait to the Olympics this year. With the lineup that he's going to have and he's going to be running that show, it's going to be gold medal time, baby.
Should be a hell of a time in Paris. You got anything else, Billy?
That is it. That's it, brother.
Good to hear from you, man. Hopefully later on this week we're going to be out someplace. I'll be looking out. Ikaika Malloy is the defensive coordinator of UCLA, positional coach of the number 15 overall selection by the Colts, Laiatu Latu. We talked to him on Friday. We'll talk to his position coach, and now the new defensive coordinator at UCLA. That's coming up next. Stephen Holder, top of the hour. We've got some Grand Prix tickets to give away as well. Inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Having a blast because when you win around here, it puts everybody in a damn straight great mood. That's exactly what you need. We celebrate that and more in Colts Draft Conversation coming up. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
eBay Motors is here for
Ride with JMV.
And the beat goes on, yeah. And the beat goes on.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Oh, thank you for joining us today. What a weekend it was around here. James, over there, I'm John. Back to this Colts draft. Laiatu Latu, number 15 overall out of UCLA, the edge rusher on Friday, joined us, was outstanding. That podcast at 1075thefan.com. Joining us now, the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline was his position coach and now the defensive coordinator at UCLA. Ikaika Malloy's joining us once again on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Coach, thank you for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How about you?
I was really fired up. I won't say this. I thought that maybe the Colts would lean a little bit more offensive at number 15 overall, but clearly they were incredibly happy at what they were getting in Latu. What are they getting from the standpoint in which you coached him up at UCLA?
You know, it's a guy with a variety of tools. You know, he's been known as a pass rusher, and he kind of takes that to a different level, but he has the ability to play in space. For us here at UCLA, we use him to drop, to spy on the quarterback, to actually watch man-to-man coverage, and then he can play the run as good as any of them. You know, his hands is kind of one of his weapons that he uses, and I know Coach Partridge is gonna have a great time working with him and kind of molding him to what it fits, because you guys already have an unbelievable defensive front.
Yeah, it looks like this is something too, Coach, that they've been chasing for a while. They've got parts and they've seen success. In fact, they set a record for sacks a year ago. But it is more of that consistency coming off the edge that the expectation is for Latu, and his story is beyond incredible, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, you know, his story is amazing only because of the course that it took. You know, I recruited him at the University of Washington. He played as a true freshman. We thought he had a stinger, which turned out to be, a neck injury. The doctors that cleared him, which is a story in itself, ended up being the team doctors at UCLA. And he had a second chance at it. And I think from there, everything really took off in terms of his mind. And, he uses the term LYL, like your last. And that's kind of how he approaches every day since that time. And I think you guys will be really intrigued in terms of his work ethic and what he does. The majority of the country got a chance to appreciate him on Saturdays during the fall, during football season. I had a chance to enjoy him on Saturdays in January. He was the only one out there on the field working his craft, and it really kind of was contagious to our defensive front, and I think as a whole, it made us a better team.
Ikaika Malloy is the defensive coordinator of UCLA, the position coach of Latu, the first-round draft selection by the Colts. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You had mentioned it was a story in itself, and that was his clearance by doctors to return to the field. If you could maybe go with that story and how all that evolved from what was, and I discussed that with him on Friday, a very dark time in his life to where he is right now.
Yeah, when he was deemed unable to play any longer for us at University of Washington, at the time that they wanted for him to separate himself from the team, so he couldn't live with the team. He wouldn't be able to go on meetings with the team, and from that, a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, that's very hard because you just told the kid you're taking away his dreams. I think that's when our relationship kind of took that next step. We were doing Bible studies together in my office, and obviously we shed a lot of tears together because we knew his future would be somewhat different. He was actually, his second love was being a fireman, so I was in the process of trying to hook him up with Seattle Fire Department to maybe get a shadow shift. We searched all across the country, myself, him, and his mom. We took him to the Seahawks. They turned him down. There's a player from Georgia that ended up going to the NFL with the exact same injury. We found his doctor, and they turned him down. In the meantime, my future at University of Washington ended. We got fired, and I went to UCLA. Well, while I was there, I asked Coach Kelly, I said, hey, do you mind checking? We think we found a doctor that cleared Laiatu Latu. but see if your team doctors would allow it. And lo and behold, Coach Kelly said, are you sure that's his name? I said, yeah, that's the doctor's name. And he said, well, that doctor is our team doctor. And so, I was able to call the parent, call Louse's mom, and I said, hey, I think we got a shot at this. And, we're all crying on the phone, and next thing you know, he joins me at UCLA. And kind of the rest were history. But, they did a really good job here in terms of making sure there were steps that we were going to take to ensure that his progress would be going forward, and we're not putting him in harm's way. We didn't want to take any steps backwards. So by the time he got to the fall season, that's when he really started making contact with people. And his first play, I remember it clearly. I mean, he hit somebody, and I was like, oh, my God. And I looked at him. He looked at me, and he kind of shrugged his shoulder. I'm like, all right, that's cool. You feel good? And then he started playing more and more, and you saw the confidence starting to build. And, I mean, it's to me, it'll be a movie eventually. I can see it.
And Ikaika Malloy is the defensive coordinator of UCLA's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I said the same thing to him on Friday. It is an absolute incredible story, and we talked a little bit about those dark moments and his preparation to do something else. And obviously football never was at all, and his potential to getting back into the game and playing again was never that far outside of his mind. So how did he and you able to maintain, that interest in thinking, all right, this may be a dream right now, but we're going to work to realize this until ultimately all that took place? How was his attitude?
It was crazy because once he had a chance to come back to football, it was one of those where you had to hold him back. Everything he wanted to do was he wanted to do extra workouts. He wanted to do extra treatments. He was in my office every morning. We were doing film study, knowing that he wouldn't even participate in spring ball. But he changed quite a bit in terms of, if I do get a chance, I'm going to make sure that I prove himself or Coach Kelly right, whoever he wanted to prove right, and not necessarily prove anybody wrong. But he took it to such a level that I was kind of envious of him, saying, I wish the players that are playing are taking the same view that he is, right? I mean, he's in we had meetings at 7:15, and he would be in my office right after. It's like, Coach, let's watch film. I'm like, you're not even practicing yet. So we would study film on what he should be doing, what the linemen are showing, and we were doing as if we were in a season. And then he started working on pass rushes on air, not even hitting bags. And then when he got the bags, he would film himself all summer, and he was sending it to me, say, Coach, is this is this the right footwork, right hand placement? And he took it to such an extreme level that once he started playing, in his mind, he's prepared for that, so that when that moment came, it wasn't going to be too big, or it wasn't going to be like, wow, I finally got here. He was going to make sure he took full advantage of it.
And so he's doing all this and not truly knowing if he's going to get cleared and be able to play.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Man, that's something right there. When we talked on Friday, we talked about, again, how dark some of those days had to be. Besides that first hit that you talked about, what was maybe the defining moment where you knew that he is now evolving into the player that you thought pre-injury, and that everything was going to be okay? And certainly the last 2 years at UCLA, everything's been okay. But was there one moment besides that first hit in general?
Yeah, it ironically turned out to be the Washington game. I want to say it was game 4 or 5 in the season of his first year, and he was so hyped up for that particular game. For both of us, that was a place that we both called home. And when leading up to that point, I was teaching him to make sure he can take on blocks without the use of his helmet or his head, much like we do in tackling, keep the head out of it. For him, block destruction was keeping the head out of it. And that whole game, he started striking like a normal fit with his hands and his head, and he'd never looked to the sideline. And that's when I knew, wow, this dude has really turned the corner, where he's not even trying to give me an okay sign that he's doing well. He's triggered that I am good, and I'm going to prove it to everybody. And on that particular game, he had one of his better games with the pressures and the sacks. And I think from there it kind of just took off. I think we both understood, all right, we're in a different level now. We're no longer trying to be happy about your playing. Now we want to go make sure you are the best, either that particular season or at least leading into the next season. And that's when I thought it really took off.
He is Ikaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator at UCLA, the position coach, obviously, of Laiatu Latu, the first-round selection out of UCLA by the Colts this past Thursday. So, Washington, what would they just get to a point where they were way too concerned about his health, and obviously the doctors wouldn't clear him, where they just kind of, I hate to say it this way, but it kind of sounds like it kind of washed your hands of it, and that was that. Was there disappointment lingering from that experience altogether there?
That's so tough because, like, just the medical field itself, I don't understand it, but I get it. Based on what they've seen on the X-rays and based on what the precautions they needed to take, the bottom line was, like, somebody would have to sign off on it. And so that's why I really took a back seat to it, because my, I guess, uneducational knowledge of the injury, I know for sure, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have. I would have been so fearful of him getting hurt. But when you watch him, and I mean, he was playing rugby during this time. I mean, he was so frustrated with the football team that he went out and actually qualified for the national team in rugby. And he's trying to call me, and he's texting me, like, Coach, he showed me film. Like, I'm actually hitting already without pads. Why wouldn't I be able to play football? So the whole thing, like I said, this is a movie in itself. I mean, the kid that was told no, in his mind, he's just going to spite us and just go play the sport that has no pads on, and I can still tackle. And I know you guys have seen film on him playing rugby, but I think that's when that really gave me confidence. Like, man, if you can do that, then we really need to start searching for any doctors that can at least give you a chance, at least give you a hope to go back to what you consider your dream.
What was the difference, though, in what the UCLA doctor that you were talking about saw compared to that of Washington? Maybe you don't know, and obviously this is stuff that's certainly well above what I know, my knowledge level here, but what I just kind of always curious what maybe they saw that would clear him compared to what Washington saw and wouldn't, I guess.
Well, see, I don't know that part in terms of what he actually saw. I do know that the UCLA doctor had some steps that he is willing to take for him to even get to that point. So it wasn't as if Latu's cleared 100%, go ahead. In his mind, he's like, these are the steps that you would have to take to convince me that when I do sign off on it, he can, create contact. And, he was very, very cautious about the whole thing. But, I guess that's it. He was willing to at least give a blueprint of what he thought would be something that he's willing to sign off on. And when he did, I mean, obviously this is so hindsight for everybody. But when he did, I mean, that was a dream come true, and obviously a blessing for myself, his family, and UCLA football.
Yeah, it's an amazing story right there, without a doubt. Ikaika Malloy is the defensive coordinator at UCLA. I know initially you had major concerns. I mean, you guys were checking into a possible field as a fireman type of gig. Do you have any concerns about his level of play here coming to the NFL and to the Colts whatsoever?
Yeah, none at all. And to me, it starts with him and his mentality. Like, what you guys will love at Indy is his energy. Like, he comes to work with a mindset that this will be his last day. I mean, if you can, anybody, fans and coaches alike, if we can actually put ourselves in that position where somebody promised you this will be your last day, how would you approach that day? That kid shows up to work every single day with that mindset, and it becomes contagious. Like, these players really took to him because this was a guy that you would have said, hey, let's make sure somehow, some way you get locked into Saturday, and then you turn him loose just in case. I'll tell you a story in practice. I actually did that. I told him, hey, today, I'm going to have you rest so you be a coach. And there's somebody, I can feel it behind my neck. He's breathing down my neck. So I turned around and this Latu said, Latu, what are you doing, man? Get away from me. And he said, Coach, if they're running, I should be running. I can't do it. Like, I have to get out there. I said, no, Latu, you wait till tomorrow. Well, sure enough, they start sprinting, and he sprints down the sideline. And, like, it's, he's like looking at me like, see, if you're not going to let me do it, I'm still going to do it. So you must have put me in there. And, like, that's the mentality that this kid has. Like, he will do whatever it takes to be successful for the benefit of the team. So he has both concepts in it. And I really think come maybe a year from now, I think all the Colts fans will be super excited of what you guys have brought onto the team. Even with I followed Colts football, so I know that defense, how good we are there on defense. But I do believe he will find his niche and his place there, and he will increase the productivity of the Indianapolis Colts.
Do you have an NFL past or present comparison that you can make to him?
Man, I'll be scared to say it, but to be quite honest, I think of my man from the Raiders.
Max Crosby. Max Crosby.
Yeah. So his energy and the way he rushes, the intensity of how he plays, Max Crosby comes to mind. His technique-wise, you go from anywhere from Khalil Mack to J.J. Watts, and I'm telling you, like, I know I'm trying to just be really mindful of who I'm comparing him to. Those guys have, they've proven themselves in the NFL, but I do believe in a year from now, people will mention Laiatu's name in that same aspect. I call him the artist. I think he takes pass rushing to such a complete different level from how he does his footwork and his hand placement. And he always has an answer because he studied so much film. And he makes what you would consider a cross out, like what Aaron Donald does. Right? Aaron Donald made that a staple in terms of pass rush, and Laiatu found a way to try to mimic that.
He is Ikaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator at UCLA. And come to think of it, I believe he was asked about that on a Colts.com video footage, and he mentioned Max Crosby too. So you're right on the money with what I think he believes himself and what he wants, I guess, to be, how he wants to play at the NFL level right there. But that's awesome. Hey, I want to thank you for the time. Congratulations, too, on being elevated to defensive coordinator at UCLA. That's a great gig for you. And thanks for the story. There was a lot of that story. There were some missing pieces here that we wanted to fill in those gaps, and you did it fantastically, Coach. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I'm telling you, Colts fans, you guys are going to be really excited for the product that Laiatu will help with the Indianapolis Colts program.
Hey, thank you, Coach, very much. We appreciate you.
Have a blessed one.
Ikaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator of UCLA. Really good info right there, some of which I had no idea. Man, podcast that one up at 1075thefan.com. Quick break. We'll come back. Stephen Holder, top of the hour. More of your Pacer thoughts. Close out opportunity tomorrow night in Milwaukee. We're back to that coming up next.
Business. It's all the things.
with JMV.
Son, you got a panty on your head. You drive fast, eh?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
And the Pacers are in front, 22-19. Pat Connaughton drives down the middle. Left-hand finish. 22-21. There's Toppin again. The Bucks fell asleep, and a pass to the rim. Gathered in. Halliburton to Toppin for a dunk.
Mark Boyle right there, Pacers radio. Pacers up 3-1, best of 7. We can't discuss some of that game number 3. We haven't gone too in detail about that other than, man, it was good that they won that because last night would have not been close to as meaningful as it was. 3-1, best of 7. Closeout opportunity on the road in Milwaukee tomorrow night. Tip time at 9:30. Coverage begins right here tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Ikaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator of UCLA, was outstanding just now. If you want to hear a little bit more insight as to, what you're going to get in Leatu Latu defensively, and especially going back to, just getting through being told you needed to retire and some of the background story between Washington and UCLA. And he's right. That is some movie stuff right there. Incredible. So he was ready to become a fireman. Number 15 overall selection on Thursday night, round number 1 of the NFL draft by the Colts. Leatu Latu. That's good stuff right there with his former coach. Quick break. We shall return. Stephen Holder on the other side. And more of your thoughts regarding the Pacers' opportunity to close tomorrow night in round number 1. Also have some Grand Prix tickets to give away, too. So my advice to you is to stay right there. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You love spring.
The Ride with JMV.
I don't know what the hell's in there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Is it raining? Are we getting caught in the rain? You know how much I love Terre Haute. You know how much I love the Wabash Valley. I'm going to have to rip some ass here in a little bit about it. Seriously. And this is about the business in which we've chosen, we've been a part of. Rick Simler has absolutely worked his ass off in Terre Haute at WTHI TV. I don't even know how many years. And people have no idea how hard you have to work in that market. There is such a high level of expectations. You have to know a ton about absolutely everything. Because the Wabash Valley, again, you're just thinking, well, you're just talking about Vigo County. No, the Wabash Valley stretches basically from, 2 counties north of Terre Haute all the way down a little north of Evansville, and basically the same geographical hash marks, if you will, in Illinois. And apparently, I saw this from a friend of mine, Todd Golden, that WTHI TV, I guess in the midst of layoffs, laid off Rick Simler. How stupid is that? What are we doing here, seriously? There's nobody that worked harder than that guy ever over there. Here's hoping he finds another gig, but I've always been a big fan of, everything in Terre Haute, and especially local TV. I talk about it all the time. I romanticize about Channel 2 and Channel 10 over there. But just what a major – I don't even know who owns THI TV, but what a joke that decision is. Hey, get somebody who works his ass off, and then, here's what we're going to do. Is there anything allowed to go like halfway? Are there any players at Indiana State right now? Is there anything happening? I know that their baseball team's really good. You think Terre Haute? Did everybody get lost in the opening of the casino, or what the hell? I hate ripping a place that I love, but that sucks. And believe me, it does not go unnoticed how hard, because I look at it from my standpoint, like people say, hey, you work so hard. Well, I know basically everybody around here will work harder than me, like our next guest on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline from ESPN and ESPN.com, Stephen Holder's going through the entire draft and the weekend, and he's got to cover owners' meetings and go here and go there. And, most of the time I kind of jack around in the front of my television right there. So there's already Stephen Holder's working harder. There's some days in our chosen profession, it really pisses me off. This is one of them.
Listen, I've had many, many, many of those days. I've been fortunate. I've not been on the wrong end of one of those situations, but many of my friends and colleagues have been. And it's a tough business, man. I don't want any sympathy. I think we're just kind of commiserating, No,
there's nobody going to give us any, so that's why I just want to yell at people about it. Yes. So,
absolutely, man.
Take my opportunity to yell at people. Yes. So.
Yeah. Let us just have this. And, and it's because, look, we're at, people say a lot of things about the media. Some of them are true, some are not. But I would say it really is, I think the majority of the challenges in this industry are beyond they're beyond our ability to do anything about them. In other words, so their technology, their viewer habits, listener habits, all of that. That ain't got anything to do with the content, and the content is sometimes good, sometimes bad, right? That's true. Depends. But there's problems that extend beyond that we just can't do anything about. It is what it is, man. People don't pick up hard copies of the newspaper anymore, right? So, like, just an example, and one of many, many, many examples of how the business has changed, and a lot of people have suffered because of it.
You watch the film, and I watch it every time it's on, from 1987 broadcast news. And
Yeah.
it told the story exactly the way that it was in 1987 and the way that it is today. Exactly.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And I just, look, I think smart people, this is what I'd say. I think smart people out there understand the role of the media and appreciate the role of the media. That does not mean the media is above reproach. I'm not saying that. I know what everybody's going to say. I get it. Fine. But you don't want to live in a country where you don't have. It's not even about like democracy and all that. I ain't gonna get dramatic. But let's stick to sports, right? Let's stick to sports. You don't want a situation where you don't have capable people covering the sports that you love. That's not a world you want to live in. I would say that.
Yeah, well, I can also say this, that there are very few markets that are as difficult because you have to know so much about a widespread area that is mostly a rural area. And we know how important accurate information is to those that really do deem your product night in and night out worthy of watching, how difficult that is. I mean, this dude is working 7 days a week, and it's amazing. Anyway, I hate to rail on Terre Haute, but I had to rail on Terre Haute. I mean, not so much Terre Haute, but WTHI TV for just an absolute stinking awful decision right there. But sorry to drag you into that, into my
all right.
Actually dragging you up upon my soapbox right there. Stephen Holder is with us. So what do you think about how the weekend went overall with the Colts in the draft?
I think with the benefit of hindsight and an opportunity to sleep on it a couple of nights, I kind of like their draft. I actually like it a fair amount. I do think it's a draft you have to understand. I think you have to understand what they were doing to really appreciate it. And what I mean by that is it was very clear they weren't going for needs or, where we thought they may have lacked depth in particular spots or any of that. They weren't doing any of that. That was not their foremost concern here. And they just said, you know what, we're going to go out there and we're just going to get the best players, period. And in their estimation, right? I don't know if they're the best players. Honestly, the Colts don't know either. But based on the assessments they made, these were their best players, and I really think that there's something to be said for that. It says that you're confident in the roster that you have. We can question that. We can debate that, but it says to me you like your roster, and what you're going to do here is you're just going to add some pieces and let the chips fall where they may. I think I at least anticipate some interesting competition. I think that's a good thing, including at spots that we really didn't anticipate a lot of competition. Suddenly, for example, the defensive line, that's a really hard position to make this final roster now all of a sudden, right? That's a good thing in the grand scheme. But, of course, we can get more granular and talk about specific spots beyond that.
Yeah, Leatu Latu was the number 15 overall selection, Stephen, on Thursday night in round number 1. Does that tell you that the days are going to be numbered here for Kwity Paye?
It tells me that there are questions at minimum. I think at minimum it does that. Look, they've got to make that decision very soon in the next week or two about his fifth-year option on his contract. Those first-round picks, you get 4 years, and then 1 year before the end of the 4-year term, you have to decide whether you're exercising the fifth year. That deadline's coming up very quickly. I would say at this point, if I had to guess, I'm not reporting this. This is only a guess, but my guess is they probably don't exercise that. It doesn't mean he's not going to stay with the Colts, but it means that he's on notice. And it means you got to put up or shut up. That's what that means. I don't think that's a bad thing. Guys in contract year tend to produce. And Quinney's a good player. I think what they're saying by this draft pick with Latu is that they're saying he's possibly, at least potentially, a more complete player. And I don't tend to disagree. One of the things the Colts have done, I tweeted about this a couple days ago, but one of the things the Colts have done, if you missed it, is over the years, they've drafted a lot of edge players, right? We've talked a lot about these guys over the years. And a lot of them, I felt like were kind of incomplete projects, or incomplete in general, and a little bit of project, had a little bit of project to them, and I'm talking about, the Kamoko Tourés of the world, guys like that. And so what they did here was they said, no, we're going for a guy who is polished. Now, I get the neck issue is certainly something we can talk about, but if they're confident in that, and they clearly are, what they're getting here is a guy who's done it. 2 years of massive, massive production. I love that. Look, let's go back to the list. Kwity Paye had a very unproductive college career. I mean, I think his career high was 6.5 sacks. Ben Banigou, we didn't even know what position that guy was going to play, right? So that was definitely a project. Tyquan Lewis, good player, but not sort of a freakish, bendy, to use a buzzword that they use in the draft, sort of edge rusher. Just a really tough physical player who is relentless and hustles. That's good. Then I would throw in Dayo Adengbo. Now, he was a very productive player. He had 12 sacks, I think, his junior year, but he was coming off an Achilles tear. So that was what made that pick kind of questionable, right? Because he was literally coming off that injury when they picked him. So this pick here, I don't worry about the Knicks. I actually feel comfortable about that. If you take that out of the equation, there's really no issue here to really quibble with in terms of whether this guy's proven. He is proven in every respect. And so I like that instead of taking a chance and saying we're going to develop a guy, blah, blah, blah. This time they said we're getting a guy who's done it, and he's plug and play. I love that.
So Stephen Holder of ESPN, ESPN.com, Colts draft conversation on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Were you surprised that they waited until so late to address cornerback needs, which are obvious? And does that tell you that they'll be dipping their toes into the water of veteran free agency at that position at some point here?
Well, surprised a little bit, yeah, because I thought they would have their pick of the top cornerbacks, and they actually did, right? They had the first defensive player off the board in the first round, and they even had a couple options in the second round. So I was surprised from that perspective. But I think with Chris Ballard, their general manager, I think when you go back and you listen to him, every year we do this. We go back and we kind of Monday morning quarterback the stuff that he had said going into the draft. And there are always breadcrumbs. And we've been talking about this. He has been expressing significant confidence in this secondary to the point where we were all kind of like, all right, maybe this is a little over the top. This has got to be a smokescreen, because he kept saying it, right? It turns out I think he was being honest. And so I give him credit for honesty. That matters. That counts. So he gets credit for that. Whether that's the right move, well, time will tell. But I think I was less surprised because he had said it. I was reluctant to just buy into what he was saying, but he said it, and he was not lying. I do think they could still have a roster move, and I don't know if it's at safety or if it's corner. My gut tells me more safety than corner, but we will see. The reason I say that is because at corner, I think they still really don't have an assessment for the guys they drafted last year. They're very high on them, for better or worse. They're very high on the 2 picks they had last year. They have a couple of young veterans, including Dallas Flowers coming back. He's coming off that injury. So I think they have a lot of bodies there, and they feel like they have enough to figure it out. They don't have any elite talent necessarily outside of Kenny Moore. Not that we can say today, right? Maybe Juju Brents develops into that. But right now, sitting here today, I can't say that. But look, guys get better with playing time. They haven't had a lot of playing time. So I'm willing to let it play out, and all we can do is judge them by the product, and we'll see. We'll learn pretty soon, in fact.
Stephen Holder is with us. So A.D. Mitchell Was that who Reggie Wayne loved at that position in this draft all along?
That's what Chris Ballard said. But I think as important as Reggie Wayne liking him a lot, I think the thing to remember here is Shane Steichen liking him a lot. And the reason I say that is because Steichen is he's very thorough in the way he evaluates players and thinks about these things. He's told me before, like, he really likes the draft. He really kind of gets deep into it. And I think all coaches really care about the draft, certainly, because they're going to have to coach these guys. But Shane seems to really take a liking to this and the evaluation part of it, like, a lot. And I think that's a good thing, because when he scouts players and when he watches players and evaluates players, what Shane Steichen's doing is he is thinking, how can I use this guy? And in what specific ways can I fit him into what I want to do? Or can I figure out a way to use him, something we're not currently doing? And so he was very specific when he talked about A.D. Mitchell. He talked about how he was explosive at the top of his routes. So what he's saying there is, I think he's got some certain routes in mind that will really be effective with A.D. Mitchell, which is a great thing. So that tells me they already have a plan for this kid. That's what you want. When a guy's just coming in and they got to figure out what to do with him, well, that ain't ideal. And I'm not saying that's typical. Most teams aren't doing that. But if you really have a handle on how you can use a guy and how you can really maximize him, that increases his chances of success, and it gives you a plan for how to deploy that player. And when he's talking about his explosiveness at the top of his routes, yes, he's a 4.39, I think, in the 40-yard dash, so he's got speed. But speed is different than explosiveness. And explosiveness is that coming out of the breaks on those routes. Can you create that separation coming out of the break when you've got to stop and start? If he can do that, that's beautiful, and that's going to really help a young quarterback. So I would say this, too, in closing on A.D. Mitchell. I really like their weapons. I mean, I just think for the last few years, I mean, this might be the best slate of weapons they've had. I'm not saying they're, on par with maybe the elite guys out there, but, I mean, by Colts standards of recent years, this is actually not bad. I think you look at Pittman, Downs. We'll see what happens with Mr. Cincinnati. He hasn't had a lot of production the last couple of years, Alec Pierce. But A.D. Mitchell, he's going to have a role at some point here. And then you throw in Jonathan Taylor, and the Jonathan Taylor we saw last season. Okay? That is a very effective group of skill players. And we'll see how they can really maximize it. But when you combine that with Anthony Richardson, you've got a lot of explosiveness there and a lot of playmaking ability. I really like it, actually.
I believe what you're trying to say here is, after many, many years in this long tortoise-like slog of recognizing this is a necessity to win at this level of the NFL, that Chris Ballard is now on the path, is what you're saying, right? Is he on the path officially?
They're getting there. It seems like it. I think they're getting there. Look, I would say that Jonathan Taylor's a big part of this too. Like he's the without him, let's say this. If they just had like just some run-of-the-mill dude at running back, I would feel differently. But I think if you're going to get what they got down the stretch with Jonathan Taylor, if that's what you're getting, well, that changes the game. And then now you have a competent group of wide receivers. You really do. And, you're going to have a second-year Josh Downs with a quarterback who can, make things happen. I think that's a great combination, those two guys. Anthony Richardson on scramble plays with Josh Downs running around, scooting away from cornerbacks. I mean, well, that's trouble, I love that. I love, Pittman getting some shots down the field like he has been asking for, because I think he has the ability to high point the football. They just don't give him maybe enough chances. He's not the fastest guy, but he makes up for it with his length and with his ability to go up and get the ball. I think he can make some plays down the field. So I think this thing has incredible potential. And I'll go back to what Michael Pittman said a couple of weeks ago. He envisions this being the best RPO team in the NFL this year, we'll see if he's right, but I think they have the potential to be.
Stephen Holder's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So you also got a bit. I call it a performance because I think there was truth, obviously, and conviction in what Chris Ballard was saying when he was dropping the F-bombs and such about, leaked information, anonymously speaking about A.D. Mitchell. But I also think that there was a great deal of Chris Ballard performance involved in there as well. What'd you make of that?
I said the same thing to KB that night, actually. So, I think, and don't get me wrong, I don't know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think Chris is very perceptive, and he knows how to make a point, right? And he knows what he was doing. He was basically trying to take the heat off the kid. And so here you had a player being criticized. His initial interview with us on Friday night was kind of weird, and we were like, "What's wrong with this guy? Has he got a bad attitude? What's his deal?" I mean, I don't care, right? Let's say he does have a bad attitude. I really don't care. I would just say that, just for the record. In the grand scheme, if the worst thing this kid ever did was have a bad attitude, well, then they're going to be fine. Okay, I think we're not talking about a guy who's out there, stealing cars here. We're talking about maybe a guy who just needs to, change his outlook a little bit. That's fine. Like he'll get there. He's in a good place. Reggie Wayne is going to be his coach, so I ain't worried about it. But anyway, back to Chris Ballard. I think Chris knew that there was a little bit of a microscope on the kid, and maybe he didn't do himself any favors by not saying the right thing Friday night. And so Chris is smart, and he knew, you know what, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to take the bullets, and I'll create the diversion. And let's not make it about this particular player anymore. I actually kind of give him a little credit for that because I think it's admirable to kind of take the heat off his player. But I do, in the grand scheme, agree with you that, yes, I don't think he was that outraged. I think he was also trying to serve a purpose there.
Yeah, I think he also I think he likes to. Whether you're talking about, those anonymous leaks that you get on these sports shows or, through, sports talk on the radio, he got an opportunity to take shots at people like us. And I don't blame him for that either because, that's seemingly all I've done for a few years. So, yeah.
I will add this. I mean, I've had this conversation with him away from the podium, and he has expressed outrage about it in those scenarios too. So I do think that legitimately bothers him. I don't think that's something that's totally made up. Now, whether the way he expressed it was completely genuine, I don't know. That I can't speak to that. But I do know that he kind of hates it. I had a story I was working on recently, or I was interviewing some people about some of the intelligence tests that these players take at the combine and so forth. And the topic of the C.J. Stroud test came up. If you recall, last year, C.J. Stroud's test score in the S2 exam, it's called the S2 test, that was leaked, and it was he was said to have scored very, very low, one of the worst scores they had seen, or at least among last year's players. And Chris Ballard had a rant about that last year in a press conference, if you recall. And so he brought that up to me again recently and was still mad about it. So, and this was not in a press conference setting. It was just the two of us talking. So it does bother him, and I think that's real. But here it served another purpose too. It allowed him to, as I said, take the target off of Mitchell's back and say, hey, you know what? It's not the kid that's the problem. It's the whole draft ecosystem that's the problem, So I guess it suited his purposes.
Did you ask him about going with that Nick Nolte 48 hours look hair-wise now? What are we doing with that?
Interesting choice, buddy. Interesting choice.
What's happening there? Do we know? Did you ask?
I don't know. I would say he needs to bring the beard back, personally. I think you got to offset that, right? If you're going to do it, okay, I'm willing to see how it goes, but you got to keep the beard because I think that gives you the balance. You got the beard, long hair. Okay, I can work with that. Clean shaven, long hair. I don't know. It's not working. I'd like to see the beard come back.
It's been hiding in his hat, that new hairstyle, for a long time. He goes flat bill too. He got a little bit of Scott Stapp of Creed in him, I think.
it's very interesting. You got the Kyle Shanahan hat going on. So I listen. I've been known to do that a little bit myself, here and there. But he's all the way flat, Bill. I'm probably a little less completely flat.
All right. Before I let you go, do you want to join me in making fun of all those out there for the past 6+ years that have sent me some of the worst things of all time regarding Myles Turner? Would you like to join me in telling all of them to stick it up their rear? Because I've enjoyed that a great deal.
There's nothing better, right?
There's nothing better.
I am all for that. Let's do that. Yes. Tell them to stick it up their rear. Look, you know what? I think here's the thing with Myles Turner, and I'm no expert, but just my personal opinion. I think we've spent too much time talking about what we want him to be as opposed to just accepting that what he is still pretty good, even if it's not what you want. There's still value in what he is. And that's just kind of how a lot of players in a lot of different sports are that way. I just find, it's like we get something, we get an image in our minds of what they should have become or should become. And if they don't get there, then they're a failure. When the truth is, there is something in between, right? There's something between bum and all-time superstar. There is a middle ground, and maybe that's just Myles Turner, but that matters. That matters a lot.
No, and I'm happy for him. I never thought there would be a day when we would hear his name chanted inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And I think it's cool for him because he has always wanted to be around here his entire career. And remember, we live in a place where everybody always argues, why do people not want to stay? People don't want to stay here. And some of this fan base out here, they were giving him plenty of reasons not to want to be here. But he's embraced it. He works his ass off. And you're right. He may not be the type of player that they want him to be, but with Tyrese Halliburton and this offense, he's exactly what you want, and it's cool that he's showing everybody that.
Yeah, I think that's really what it boils down to, man. Just appreciate players for what they are, and sometimes that's it's okay to do that. Sometimes that's enough. We can always ask for more. But that doesn't mean that they're worthless if they fall short of that. So I'm happy for him. And you are right. I think this is a market where you if you choose not to embrace the player, you do so at your own peril. Okay, that's just the truth. It is what it is. All right, this ain't New York City. It ain't L.A. It is what it is, and that's a reality that I think fans sometimes lose sight of.
Trying to run him off.
So kudos to him, by the way. Kudos to him for sticking it out.
Trying to run him off in a market where, people have been running to get out of in the past is not a good combination. It's not. What are you writing about, buddy?
We'll wrap up the draft here in a little bit. I think a little bit of the next story I'll do, it'll be a little bit of what I just talked about, which is that they just kind of didn't worry about I guess this draft showed a lot of faith in what they have in their existing roster, for better or worse, right? It reinforced to us how they feel about their roster, which is they think the roster is pretty good. So they just went out there and they just said, we're just going to get players. And if they are in a position where they won't play immediately, well, that's okay. We don't care. So I give them credit for that. It's bold, and maybe they'll be proven right. We'll see.
Stephen Older of ESPN and ESPN.com on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Man, I always appreciate that. We'll do it again next week. Thanks, buddy.
All right, brother. See you.
Stephen Holder right there. I have not. People say, all you're going to do is gloat today. No, I'm not. Because, listen, it's not like all of a sudden that my opinion wins. It's won for a while now. It's just some of the underbelly that act as if they're Pacer fans are finally now understanding what I have talked about over the years. Now you're finally, some of you, not all of you, some of you have been there the entire time. It's just a very small percentage. Some of those nerds, formerly of Pacers Digest or whatever that is, some dorks out there, but not all of you, very small percentage. So I have not gloated all day long, but I was very happy for him. I've been happy for him this postseason so far, and I don't care who it's against, and who the Bucks don't have. We have seen the entirety of the season, and we have seen, for the most part, the entirety of Tyrese Halliburton, what Halliburton means to this team, what he means to Myles, and vice versa, especially in this era of basketball, and then what maintains a level of success with this basketball team. If you don't realize that right now, then you're exactly what I talked about. You have no idea about basketball, and especially how they want to play basketball and how we see what best benefits them. If it is not clear to you by now, then, well, there are two reasons here. And one I don't want to go into. The other is just simply put, you don't know a damn thing about basketball, so congratulations. There you go. Plenty of time for you before the top of the hour. Grand Prix tickets to give away too, right? Rick Venturi, 4 o'clock hour, coming up tomorrow. You guys ready for that? Rick Venturi will be here. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, I know, like some of you, constructive criticism is one thing. Being critical of the way he played against Anthony Davis and the Lakers back in early December in Vegas, fine. But he's walking off the floor and he's quitting on the team and just all the stupid stuff that some have always added to the whole Myles equation around here is ridiculous. So you're the people that I go after today, and it makes me feel damn good. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Business. It's all the things that keep this world turning.
Ride with JMV.
Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No. The definition of the word idiot, which you f***ing are.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
4:49 left in the third. Perimeter right, McConnell. Left hand to the top of the circle. He's in the lane to the far corner. This is Turner, and that's worth 3.
Myles Turner, heck of a sequence here, forcing another timeout here by Doc Rivers and the Bucks.
That's Pat Boylan and Eddie Gill. Pacers Radio right there. Crank this up. For a great highlight after that, we got to have some serious music re-entry crankage right here. 239-1070 is the number. We'll close out with your calls coming up. Close-out opportunity. Game number 5 tomorrow night. It's a 9:30 tip time from Milwaukee. Are we watching exactly what the injury situation is yet and how maybe the Bucks end up handling that? We keeping an eye on that over there? Still a curiosity. Let's see what happens. I would almost be shocked at this point. Anybody else? Really, that either one would play. I'm talking about Lillard and Giannis. Maybe Lillard. I would not be surprised if they go with the same sort of combinations coming up tomorrow night to see if they can't get through and then have a serious chat about bringing their dudes back on Thursday. Just a thought. All right, 239-1070 is the number. Let's go. T-Mobile Ray is on here. Hello, T-Mobile Ray.
Hey, what's up, John?
What's happening?
Let me give you an apology. I'm sorry about the Myles thing all year. I want to start there.
It's all good. You don't have to apologize to me. I'm just glad that you recognize that he has a huge importance to this team and how it's built and how it plays and how it has success. So I'm glad.
Yeah, I never imagined it being what it is now. So I want to start off by saying that. Secondly, I know you've been setting up for your guy for years now, but I want to talk about my guy that I've been setting up for years, Chris Ballard.
Yes.
I want you to realize this, John. This is a new era, new time, new day and age. And you got to realize this, too, John, is that the draft pick of Anthony Richardson will be known as the great resurrection of Chris Ballard. So I love what I've seen this past week. I'm ready to get it rolling. And then I want to leave you with this too.
Okay.
It's not who finishes first. It's about who lasts longer.
Damn right about that. T-Mobile Ray, thank you for the call. One of these days, I may be eating it too. Because I've been pretty difficult on Chris Ballard. And much like what T-Mobile Ray said, he said he thought that he was justified. He has said that before in being critical regarding Myles, and I feel that I've been justified in being critical of Chris Ballard. And believe me, I hope that to be the case. Can you imagine having both teams playing at a high level around here? It has been stinking forever with that combination. It's just more fun. You get that feeling right now, don't you? And believe me, I don't want to sit around here all day, every day, complaining about losing and ripping into people and being critical about things. All it does is bring you down. Think about me. So I start hours 7, 8, and 9 of 9 hours of local lambasting after a bad game. You think you guys don't get tired of that? I would if I were you. Mix in some winning and then do it consistently. That's what we're looking for. Like everybody's on the same team with that in mind. Believe me, I have to say what I have to say, but that doesn't mean I want to see these teams have, or I don't want to see these teams have success because, I mean, hell, it just makes you feel better. How many years have we gone through Think about just the last 4 in general of how we felt the entirety of the time. Sports can do some incredibly special things. I believe that. Josh is next at 239-1070. Hello, Josh. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, John?
Trying not to spill crap all over here. So, yeah, cool. Good on me. Josh, go ahead, buddy.
Yes, I'm loving what the Pacers is doing, man. I've always been a Myles supporter. I almost gave up on him a couple of years ago, but you know, he's been playing like an all-star center in these playoffs here. You know what I'm saying, here lately. You know, and I really love what we're doing, man. I'm seeing a path. I mean, Boston is not. I'm of course we take care of Milwaukee, and then New York. It looks like that. You know what I'm saying? That's a very winnable series for us. I'm seeing a path where, you know, Boston's not looking too, you know what I'm saying, they're looking kind of vulnerable. You know, we might be able to get to the finals, you know, and then we'll have basketball here all the way up into something called the WNBA starts. You know, you heard of that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of reason to be excited around here, for real.
Yep. I remember when the Fever was in the finals that year, and it's funny, you know, my dad's a big WNBA fan. I was when it first started. I kind of fell off. But, you know, I looked up and I was going through the TV and I looked up, I was like, the Fever's in the finals? Let me tune into this, you know.
Now, the Caitlin Clark effect is going to be so profound around here. It's going to be ridiculous and ridiculously fun, man. Thank you very much, Josh, for the call. 3 games later on tonight of the NBA playoffs, I should say. 7:30 TNT's got the Celtics and the Heat. Celtics up 2-1, that best of 7. Thunder and Pelicans at 8:30. That's the NBA TV middle game right there. Thunder with a win on the road, close out their first round series. They're up 3-0. Lakers and the Nuggets as LA tries to stay alive on the road in Denver. 3-1 with the Nuggets up. That game 5 tips tonight at 10 o'clock. All right. Grand Prix tickets, your calls to close out, and a big show tomorrow. Matt Miller of ESPN. Rick Venturi joins us for however long he wants to go regarding the draft. That's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So make sure that you're here. And you've got a closeout opportunity for the Pacers tomorrow night. The tip time's at 9:30. 9 o'clock is when your pregame coverage begins. It's right here, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
In the construction business and can't find what you need? Quality support.
Ride with JMV.
Hans, Bobby, I'm your white knight.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, crank me up here, James. Happy birthday, the 91st for Willie Nelson, who once said an incredibly accurate quote. We are the same. There's no difference anywhere in the world. People are people. They laugh, cry, feel, and love. And music seems to be the common denomination that brings us all together. Music cuts through all boundaries and goes right to the soul. Willie Nelson is 91 today. Legendary. Grand Prix tickets at 239-1070 right now. If you guys want to go see the Grand Prix, we would love to send you to see the Grand Prix. Again, that's number 9 at 239-1070 with the opportunity right there. And I'll get a couple of people on before we bail on what has been a busy Monday so far today. Jimmy is up next. Hello, Jimmy. How are you? I need to put Jimmy on the air here. Can we put Jimmy on the air? Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Hello, Jimmy.
Hey, can you hear me, John?
Yes, long time no talk. How you doing, buddy?
Hope you're doing well. Hey, real quick, I know you have other people on hold, so I'll let you get to them as well. But I'm so excited. If you're one, I'm 1A in terms of Myles Turner fans, John, and I couldn't be happier for him. I think the flash that he gets from the city is unnecessary, and the support that he got last night was just amazing. And I was right there, as you know, at the game, and I was wearing my Myles Turner shirt, dapped up his dad after the game and told him heck of a game. And so I couldn't be happier for him. I wanted to get your take one thing real quick on tomorrow night.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Obi guarding either Middleton or Brook Lopez?
I don't mind. I think Obi's been good, and yeah, I don't. The Lopez thing I get because Myles has to go out, and that brings him away from the basket, and nobody likes that. But yeah, Obi coming off the bench and getting Middleton, who's been getting a lot of minutes because he's been the lone legitimate, consistent scorer out there. I don't mind that at all. Man, Obi had big moments offensively, came in the game immediately, made things happen yesterday, got that tempo going. He's been huge.
And last thing, I just wanted to say, you and Hagan always make my Sunday night a little easier when I watch you on Fox 59 Sports Overtime. So you guys are the best. Have a great night.
Thank you again, you guys, for the tickets to Hinkle for the Indiana State NIT. That was a blast.
I'm glad you had fun, and the only downside for me was I wasn't able to join you. I was in, as you know, I was in Florida.
Get to hang with your dad, though. That's a good time, let me tell you.
Hey, I'll be at your next remote, John. You have a great night.
You got it, buddy. That's my friend Jimmy, our friend Jimmy, right there. JMV, I'm one of those detractors. I'm so happy that you were right and never wavered. Thank you. Michael says, never down on Turner, but I was originally Sabonis over Turner as who to keep, but the change in roster construction, it's obvious Turner was the right choice. Yeah, Halliburton and Sabonis and the way that they both play and how they're utilized just aren't going to play together. And they want a stretch big in this case, and that's why that works here. JMV, did you catch any of the Pillow Fight League this weekend on ESPN, one of the ESPN channels? Couldn't believe what I was seeing. I did not see the Pillow Fight League. It sounds incredible, however. JMV, did Ballard go with the artist robotic FUE before the draft? I don't know. He could have. That's exactly the type of work that you get. Chad writes, if the Pacers are able to re-sign Pascal, will they still be able to extend Myles with what he's going to cost when his contract is up? He is a must-keep player. I would imagine both will work, and yes, Myles is probably going to have, no probably around it, will have to be redone. You got to find ways for that to work. That's what happens when the guys that you believe will play well together and have success start doing just that. Hey, Fulton, close out this show at 239-1070. Go quick.
Hey, JMV, how you doing?
How was your prom?
It was amazing. I got a surprise visit with my cousins, and
awesome.
I was singing Will Wagon Wheel at prom on Friday.
I love
night
it.
For you.
Little wagon
I sent
wheel.
you the video so you guys can watch it.
We will check out the video, Fulton. Thank you very much. I got to run here. That's our friend Fulton right there. I'm glad you had a great time at the prom. We had a great time today. Outstanding. Ikaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator, UCLA. Stephen Holder, ESPN. Pat Boylan way back to start the show from both Pacers Radio and TV. Rick Venturi, 4 o'clock tomorrow. Matt Miller, ESPN, 5 o'clock. Pacer closeout day as well. We'll have it all for you right here. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan and the AAA Membership Lounge. Have a great night.